An influential businessman passes out at the wheel during the night, leaving his car stuck and the horn blaring through the empty streets. A 7-year-old girl, alone and scared, approaches and finds the unconscious man in the driver's seat. Driven by pure instinct, she takes the wheel, and what she does will surprise you. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The Chicago winter evening descended rapidly, bringing with it a biting cold that seemed to creep through even the thickest coats. 7-year-old Emma Hayes clutched her small pink backpack tightly against her chest as she hurried along the sidewalk. The streetlights had just begun to flicker on, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted pavement. She needed to get home before her father started to worry. Emma was small for her age, with bright hazel eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Despite her youth, there was something remarkably self-possessed about her demeanor. Her mother often said she had an old soul, wisdom beyond her years. Tonight, that wisdom was telling her to hurry. 3 blocks away, in a sleek midnight blue Bentley, Maxwell Sterling's vision began to blur. The 58-year-old tech magnate and CEO of Sterling Innovations had been fighting off dizziness all day, dismissing it as fatigue from his recent trip to Tokyo. The quarterly board meeting had run late, and he'd insisted on driving himself home, despite his assistant's concerns. "It's just stress," he had assured her. "Nothing a good night's sleep won't fix." But as he navigated through Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood, the pounding in his chest intensified. His breath came in short gasps. The steering wheel felt slippery beneath his sweating palms. Street. Signs blurred into meaningless shapes. With the last bit of consciousness slipping away, Maxwell managed to pull the car partly onto the curb before his head fell forward onto the steering wheel, triggering the horn. The continuous blaring cut through the quiet evening air. Emma stopped in her tracks. The sound was coming from around the corner, persistent and unrelenting. Most adults would have hurried past, assuming someone was having car trouble or expressing road rage. But Emma felt something different, a tugging sensation, an instinct that someone needed help. She hesitated only briefly before changing direction, moving cautiously toward the sound. As she rounded the corner, she saw the luxury car awkwardly positioned half on the sidewalk, with its headlights still blazing and horn wailing into the night. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Emma approached cautiously, peering through the driver's side window. The glass was partially fogged from the heat inside, contrasting with the winter air, but she could make out a man in a light-colored suit slumped over the steering wheel. Her heart began to race. "Mister," she called, knocking on the window. "Are you okay, mister?" No response. Emma tried the door handle. To her surprise, it opened. The man, impeccably dressed in what she recognized as an expensive suit like the ones her father pointed out in magazines, didn't move. Up close, she could see he was breathing, but his face was ashen, and a sheen of sweat covered his forehead despite the cold. "Mister, wake up!" she shouted, shaking his shoulder. The man groaned but remained unconscious. Emma looked around frantically. The street was oddly deserted. No pedestrians, no passing cars. It was that strange hour when people were inside having dinner and the nightlife hadn't yet begun. Her father had taught her about calling 911, but she had left her little emergency phone in her other coat. A memory flashed in her mind, her father patiently explaining how cars worked during one of their daddy-daughter days when he'd let her sit on his lap and help steer in an empty parking lot. "Always remember, Emma Bear, this is a big responsibility," he had said. With determination that belied her age, Emma climbed into the car. She pushed with all her might, struggling to move the man's substantial weight off the steering wheel and onto the passenger seat. It took every ounce of her strength, but somehow she managed it, clearing access to the controls. The man's labored breathing spurred her on. She'd seen movies where people died from heart attacks. What if this man was having one right now? She couldn't let that happen. Emma slid into the driver's seat, her feet dangling far above the pedals. She reached down and felt for them with the toes of her winter boots. The seat was leather and slippery, forcing her to scoot forward until she was perched on the very edge. The steering wheel seemed enormous in front of her. "Okay," she whispered, to herself. "Key first." The key was already in the ignition. She turned it, and the engine roared to life, startling her. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree, with gauges and symbols she didn't understand. But she recognized the gear shift from her father's car. P for park, R for reverse, D for drive. Emma remembered seeing a hospital sign a few blocks back when she'd passed by on the school bus earlier that day. Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She'd noticed it because her teacher had just taught them about directions, and she'd been proud to recognize the word Northwestern. With trembling hands, she shifted the gear into drive and gently pressed the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, and she quickly pressed the brake, causing both her and the unconscious man to jerk forward. She took a deep breath and tried again, more gently this time. The massive vehicle began to move. Emma could barely see over the dashboard, so she sat up as straight as possible, craning her neck to peer through the windshield. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Please don't die, mister," she whispered as she navigated the car onto the main road. "Please don't die." The first intersection approached. The light was red, but Emma didn't dare stop. What if the man needed help right away? With her heart in her throat, she carefully guided the car through, wincing as horns blared around her. A taxi driver swerved, narrowly missing them, and rolled down his window to shout obscenities that turned to shocked silence when he glimpsed the small girl behind the wheel. "Sorry," Emma called out, though she knew he couldn't hear her. Another intersection, another red light ignored. Emma's vision blurred with tears of fear and determination. The Bentley swerved dangerously as she struggled to maintain control. A truck honked loudly as it braked hard to avoid them, its driver's face a mask of disbelief. The man beside her groaned and shifted slightly. "It's okay," Emma told him, her voice shaking. "I'm getting you to the hospital, just hold on." Chicago's streets seemed endless, each block stretching impossibly long before her. Every time she had to turn, Emma would slow the car to a crawl, making wide, cautious arcs that sometimes took her into oncoming traffic. Miraculously, other drivers, upon seeing the small child at the wheel, gave her space, some even stopping to stare in astonishment as the luxury car wobbled past. Finally, blessedly, the illuminated hospital sign appeared ahead. Emma had never felt such relief in her young life. She approached the emergency entrance and, in her excitement to arrive, pressed the brake too suddenly. The car jerked to a halt, throwing them both forward. The commotion attracted the attention of hospital staff, who rushed toward the oddly parked vehicle. Emma scrambled out, her small legs shaking so badly she nearly collapsed. "Help!" she cried, her voice raw with emotion. "This man is sick! Please help him!" Medical personnel converged on the car, quickly extracting Maxwell from the passenger seat. As they transferred him to a gurney, Emma stood alone in the driveway, suddenly overcome by what she had just done. Her small body began to tremble uncontrollably, and tears streamed down her face. A kind-faced nurse noticed her and knelt down. "Did you bring him here, sweetie?" she asked incredulously. Emma nodded, unable to speak through her sobs. "You're the bravest little girl I've ever met," the nurse said, wrapping a blanket around Emma's shoulders. "Come inside where it's warm. We'll take good care of both of you." As Emma followed the nurse into the brightly lit hospital, she cast one last glance at the man being rushed through the emergency doors. "Please don't let him go away," she whispered, a prayer to whoever might be listening. Please. She didn't know then that this desperate journey was just the beginning, that the man whose life she had just saved would irrevocably change her own in ways neither of them could possibly imagine. Inside the hospital waiting room, Emma sat, wrapped in a hospital blanket, her small feet dangling from a chair designed for adults. The adrenaline that had fueled her impossible drive was fading, leaving her exhausted but unable to rest. Every time the double doors leading to the emergency area swung open, her eyes darted up, hoping for news about the man she had saved. A social worker named Ms. Jenkins had been called and was now sitting beside Emma, gently trying to extract information about her parents. The woman's kind face was etched with concern. Emma, honey, we need to call your parents. They must be worried sick about you. Emma nodded reluctantly. My dad's number is in my backpack, she said, her voice small. She hadn't thought about how scared her father would be, and the realization made fresh tears well up in her eyes. While Ms. Jenkins made the call, Emma watched the frantic activity of the emergency department. Doctors rushed back and forth, their faces serious beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. In her mind, she kept replaying the journey that had brought her here, the feel of the massive steering wheel in her small hands, the terror of navigating. Through traffic, the desperate hope that she wasn't too late. Emma? Her father's voice cut through her thoughts. Michael Hayes burst into the waiting room, his work clothes still dusty from the construction site. Panic etched across his weathered face. When he spotted his daughter, relief flooded his features, and he dropped to his knees, enveloping her in a crushing embrace. Baby girl, what happened? I was going crazy looking for you. His voice broke with emotion as he pulled back to examine her, checking for injuries. Emma tried to explain, but the words tumbled out in a confused jumble. The car, the unconscious man, the drive to the hospital. Michael's expression shifted from relief to disbelief as he pieced together what his daughter had done. You drove a car? By yourself? His voice was barely a whisper. Before Emma could respond, a doctor approached them. He was tall with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that somehow still conveyed warmth. Mr. Hayes, I'm Dr. Patterson. Your daughter has done something extraordinary tonight. He glanced down at Emma with undisguised admiration. The man she brought in was having a severe cardiac event. If she hadn't gotten him here when she did, he left the sentence unfinished, but his meaning was clear. Michael's face paled as he finally understood the magnitude of what Emma had done and the danger she had put herself in. Who is he? Michael asked. The man? Dr. Patterson hesitated. I'm not supposed to share patient information, but given the circumstances, he's Maxwell Sterling. Michael's jaw dropped. Even Emma recognized the name. Sterling Innovations was one of the largest tech companies in the country. Their logo appeared on half the devices in their modest home. He's asking to see her, Dr. Patterson continued, if that's all right with you. Michael hesitated, his protective instincts battling with the knowledge that his daughter had saved this man's life. Finally, he nodded, keeping a firm grip on Emma's hand. They were led through the emergency department to a private room where Maxwell Sterling lay connected to various monitors. Despite his condition, he remained an imposing figure, tall and distinguished, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that lit up when Emma entered the room. There she is, he said, his voice weak but warm. My guardian angel. Emma shrunk back against her father, suddenly shy in the presence of the man she had rescued. It's okay, Emma Bear, Michael encouraged softly. Say hello to Mr. Sterling. Hello, Emma managed, her voice barely audible. Maxwell smiled. Do. You know what you did tonight, young lady? You saved my life. Emma nodded solemnly. I saw you needed help. Dad says we should always help people when they need it. Maxwell's gaze shifted to Michael, taking in his worn work boots and calloused hands. You've raised an incredible daughter, Mr. Hayes. Michael, Emma's father corrected, uncomfortable with the formality. And yes, she is something special. Pride mingled with lingering fear in his voice. A moment of awkward silence followed, broken when Maxwell winced in pain. We should let you rest, Michael said, gently tugging Emma toward the door. Wait, Maxwell called. Please visit tomorrow? Both of you? I'd like to thank you properly when I'm feeling stronger. Michael hesitated, then nodded stiffly. Get some rest, Mr. Sterling. As they left the hospital, Emma clutching her father's hand, neither of them could have anticipated how this chance encounter would alter the course of their lives. The next morning, Emma insisted on returning to the hospital, despite Michael's reluctance. They found Maxwell sitting up in bed, looking considerably better than the previous night. A collection of children's books sat on the bedside table, a gift from a nurse who'd heard about Emma's heroic deed. I brought you something, Emma said, shyly offering a hand-drawn get-well card decorated with glitter and stickers. Maxwell accepted it with genuine delight, examining the childish drawing of a car and a hospital with exaggerated care. "This is the finest artwork I've ever received," he declared, causing Emma to beam with pride. As Emma settled into a chair beside the bed, selecting one of the books for Maxwell to read to her, Michael stood awkwardly by the door, unsure of his place in this strange tableau. "Mr. Hayes," Maxwell said, noticing his discomfort, "would you mind if I spoke with you privately for a moment?" Michael nodded, and they stepped into the hallway while a nurse kept an eye on Emma. "I want to compensate you," Maxwell began without preamble. "What your daughter did—" "We don't need your money," Michael interrupted, his pride instantly bristling. Maxwell studied him for a moment. "Forgiveness isn't my strong suit, Mr. Hayes, but I'm trying to learn it. So I'll forgive that interruption, because I understand where it comes from. But please don't mistake gratitude for charity." Michael's jaw tightened. "My daughter didn't help you for a reward." "I know that," Maxwell said softly. "That's what makes it so precious." He ran a hand through his silver hair. "Look, I nearly died last night. I was alone in that car, no family rushing to my bedside, just business associates concerned about the company's stock price." His voice grew rough with emotion. "A 7-year-old child showed me more humanity than most adults I've encountered in my entire life. So please let me express my gratitude in whatever way I can." Something in Maxwell's vulnerability penetrated Michael's defenses. "We're doing fine," he said, less sharply. "But thank you." When they returned to the room, they found Emma reading aloud to an enthralled audience of nurses and orderlies who had gathered in the doorway. Her clear voice carried the story with surprising expressiveness for a child her age. Maxwell watched, her with an expression Michael couldn't quite decipher. Something beyond gratitude, something almost like longing. Over the next few days, their hospital visits became a routine. Emma would arrive clutching a new drawing or a book she wanted to share. Maxwell would listen intently to her stories about school and friends, treating each childish anecdote as if it were vital information. For a man who commanded boardrooms and managed billion-dollar acquisitions, he displayed remarkable patience with Emma's meandering conversations. Michael observed their growing bond with a mixture of appreciation and unease. There was something undeniably touching about watching the powerful businessman light up at his daughter's arrival. Yet he couldn't help wondering what would happen when Maxwell Sterling returned to his world of corporate jets and penthouse apartments. Emma had already lost too much when her mother left. Michael couldn't bear to see her hurt again. On the 5th day, they arrived to find Maxwell dressed in regular clothes instead of a hospital gown, preparing to be discharged. "Are you going away?" Emma asked, her disappointment evident. Maxwell knelt to her level, wincing slightly at the movement. "I'm just going home to recover, Emma, but this isn't goodbye." He glanced up at Michael, seeking permission. After a moment's hesitation, Michael nodded. "How would you like to visit me sometimes?" Maxwell asked Emma. "I have a garden where we could read, and a chef who makes the best cookies in Chicago." Emma's eyes widened. "Can Dad come too?" "Of course," Maxwell assured her, standing to face Michael. "Both of you are welcome anytime." As they watched Maxwell being escorted to a waiting limousine, Emma waved enthusiastically, while Michael stood back, his expression guarded. "He's nice, isn't he, Dad?" Emma said, taking her father's hand. "Yes, Emma Bear," Michael replied carefully. "He seems nice." But as the limousine pulled away, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had just become entangled with something far bigger and more complicated than a simple act of kindness. For better or worse, Maxwell Sterling was now part of their world. What neither Michael nor Emma could see was Maxwell in the back of the limousine, staring at Emma's crayon drawing with tears in his eyes, remembering another child from long ago, a memory he had spent years trying to bury, and now rising unbidden to the surface of his consciousness. Maxwell Sterling's lakefront mansion in Chicago's exclusive North Shore stood as a monument to his success, a sprawling estate with manicured gardens and floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of Lake Michigan. Yet as his driver pulled through the wrought iron gates a week after his discharge from the hospital, Maxwell felt none of the satisfaction that usually accompanied his return home. The enormous house echoed with emptiness. His housekeeper, Mrs. Winters, greeted him with professional concern, having prepared his favorite meals and arranged his medications according to the doctor's instructions. But her efficiency only highlighted what was missing: genuine warmth, the kind that had radiated from a small girl in a hospital room. "Will you be taking dinner in the study, Mr. Sterling?" Mrs. Winters asked. "No," Maxwell replied, surprising himself. "Set it in the garden pavilion tonight. And, Mrs. Winters, we'll be having guests this weekend, a young girl and her father. Please prepare the blue guest suite and stock the kitchen with whatever children like. Cookies, I suppose. And healthy options," he added hastily, imagining Michael Hayes' disapproval of a sugar-only menu. Mrs. Winters raised an eyebrow but nodded. In 15 years of service, she had never seen her employer host a child. Alone in his study later that evening, Maxwell found himself unable to focus on the stack of documents his assistant had couriered over. Instead, he picked up the phone and made a call he'd been contemplating since the hospital. "Archer, it's Sterling. I need a background check. Nothing invasive, just the basics." He hesitated. "Michael Hayes and his daughter Emma, Chicago residents." 2 days later, a sealed envelope arrived on his desk. Maxwell stared at it for a long moment before opening it, feeling vaguely guilty for investigating the family without their knowledge. But old habits died hard, and Maxwell hadn't built his empire by taking unnecessary risks. The report was brief but revealing. Michael Hayes, 34, widower. Not divorced as Maxwell had assumed. His wife Catherine had died 3 years ago from cancer, leaving him to raise Emma alone. He worked as a foreman at a construction company, earned a modest but stable income, and had no criminal record beyond a single speeding ticket. They lived in a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood on the city's west side. Emma attended the local public school, where she was an excellent student despite having to sometimes arrive early or stay late due to her father's work schedule. Maxwell sat back, a complex mixture of emotions washing over him. Relief that there were no red flags, sadness for the loss they had endured, and something else, a peculiar sense of kinship with Michael, despite their vastly different circumstances. Both men navigating life without partners, both shaped by loss. When Saturday arrived, Maxwell found himself uncharacteristically nervous. He changed his outfit twice. First a suit that felt too formal, then casual wear that seemed too deliberate in its informality. He finally settled on dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, then stood in his cavernous foyer awaiting his guests. The doorbell rang precisely at the agreed time. Michael Hayes was nothing if not punctual. Maxwell opened the door himself, dismissing Mrs. Winters with a wave. Emma bounced excitedly on her toes, wearing a blue dress that had clearly been saved for special occasions. "Mr. Sterling!" she exclaimed. "Dad said we could only stay for 2 hours because you need to rest, but I brought books to read to you." Maxwell chuckled, kneeling despite his still healing body to accept the enthusiastic hug Emma offered. 2 hours is plenty of time to start with," he said, rising to shake Michael's hand. The construction worker's grip was firm, his expression carefully neutral as he took in the opulent surroundings. "Nice place," Michael said, in what had to be the understatement of the year. "It's too big for one person," Maxwell replied honestly. "But the garden is worth it. Emma, would you like to see the flowers?" What followed was the most enjoyable afternoon Maxwell had experienced in years. Emma's delight in the garden, her careful examination of each bloom, her excitement over the koi pond, all of it felt like seeing his home through new eyes. Even Michael gradually relaxed, especially when their conversation turned to the garden's design and construction, territory where he had professional knowledge to contribute. They had lunch in the pavilion, gourmet sandwiches for the adults and star-shaped peanut butter and jelly for Emma, prepared by a chef who had cooked for presidents, but had taken Maxwell's request for kid-friendly food as a personal challenge. "This is the best sandwich ever," Emma declared, making the chef beam with pride as he retreated to the kitchen. After Lunch, when Emma became absorbed in feeding the koi fish, Maxwell seized the opportunity to speak privately with Michael. "She's remarkable," Maxwell said, watching Emma count fish aloud. "You've done an amazing job raising her alone." Michael's expression tightened. "The report told you that, did it?" Maxwell didn't insult him by denying it. "Yes, I apologize for the intrusion, but in my position—" "Save it," Michael interrupted. "I get it. Man like you has to be careful." His voice held no rancor, just a tired acceptance. "Must have been disappointed to find out we're nothing special. Just a working guy and his kid." "Actually," Maxwell said quietly, "I found out you're far more impressive than I imagined. Raising a child like Emma alone while working full-time, that takes extraordinary strength." Michael studied him, searching for condescension and finding none. "Her mother did the hard part," he said finally. "Laid the foundation, I'm just trying not to mess it up." "Catherine," Maxwell said, "I'm sorry for your loss." Michael's eyes widened slightly at the use of his late wife's name, but he merely nodded. 3 years next month. Emma was 4. Young enough that the memories are fading, which breaks my heart, even while I'm grateful she was spared the worst of the grief. They watched Emma in silence for a moment, each man lost in his own thoughts. "What about you?" Michael asked suddenly. "No family?" Maxwell's face closed off. "No," he said shortly. "Not anymore." Before Michael could inquire further, Emma called out, having discovered a small stone bench hidden among some flowering bushes. The moment passed, but Michael filed away both the response and the shadow that had crossed Maxwell's face at the question. 2 hours stretched into 4, and the sun was beginning to set when Michael finally insisted it was time to leave. Emma protested until Maxwell promised another visit soon. "Next Saturday," he suggested. "I have a collection of old board games gathering dust that could use some attention." Emma's enthusiastic agreement made both men smile. As Maxwell watched, their modest car disappeared down his long driveway. He was struck by the silence that descended upon their departure. The house behind him suddenly seemed less like a showcase of his success and more like a mausoleum, beautiful, impressive, and utterly lifeless. What began as a one-time visit evolved into a weekly ritual. Each Saturday, Emma would arrive, bursting with stories from school, bringing drawings or small treasures to show Maxwell. Michael would come too, initially vigilant, but gradually easing into something approaching comfort in the billionaire's presence. For Maxwell, these visits became the cornerstone of his week. Board meetings and corporate acquisitions paled in comparison to the simple joy of teaching Emma to play chess or listening to her read aloud from her favorite books. He found himself collecting children's literature throughout the week, scouring bookstores for titles he thought might engage her curious mind. During Emma's 3rd visit, rain confined them indoors, leading to an impromptu tour of the mansion. When they reached Maxwell's home office, Emma spotted a silver-framed photograph partially obscured behind a stack of files. Maxwell, much younger, with his arm around a dark-haired woman. "Is that your wife?" Emma asked innocently. Maxwell froze. Michael, sensing the sudden tension, tried to redirect Emma's attention, but Maxwell raised a hand to stop him. "No," he said carefully. "That was someone very special to me a long time ago." Emma nodded with the easy acceptance of childhood and moved on to examine a crystal paperweight. But Michael had seen something in Maxwell's expression, a flash of such profound pain that it momentarily stripped away the billionaire's polished veneer. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep watching a movie in the media room, Michael found Maxwell on the terrace staring out at the rain-lashed lake. "You don't have to talk about it," Michael said, joining him at the railing, "but sometimes it helps." Maxwell remained silent for so long that Michael thought he wouldn't respond. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, nearly lost beneath the sound of raindrops. "I was married once. Briefly. It ended badly." "I'm sorry," Michael said simply. Maxwell nodded, offering nothing more, and Michael didn't press. They stood side by side, two men from different worlds, finding unexpected common ground in loss and fatherhood. As fall gave way to winter, their visits continued. Maxwell had his staff prepare the indoor pool for Emma, who approached swimming with the same determined focus she brought to everything. Michael initially declined to join them, uncomfortable with accepting what he perceived as luxury, but Emma's insistence eventually wore him down. Watching father and daughter splash together, Maxwell felt a curious ache in his chest. Not envy, something more complex, a recognition of what he had missed, what he had sacrificed in his relentless pursuit of success. "You should join us," Emma called, waving him over. Maxwell shook his head. "I'm content to watch." But Emma would have none of it. She climbed out of the pool, leaving small wet footprints across the tile, and tugged at his hand with dripping fingers. "Please? It's fun." Something in her earnest request crumbled his resistance. Maxwell, the titan of industry known for his unyielding negotiation tactics, found himself unable to refuse this simple request from a 7-year-old girl. And so began a new phase in their evolving relationship, one where Maxwell Sterling, who hadn't played in decades, rediscovered the simple joy of being splashed by a giggling child, of abandoning dignity for genuine connection. What none of them realized was that their Saturday idyll was being observed. A figure in a nondescript car had begun parking across from Sterling's estate, documenting the Hayes' weekly visits with a telephoto lens. Someone who had been watching, waiting, and planning. Someone with a score to settle. The first letter arrived. On a Tuesday, nearly 3 months after Maxwell's cardiac episode. It came in a plain white envelope with no return address, mixed in with the usual corporate correspondence. Maxwell's assistant, Diane, who screened all his mail, almost discarded it as junk, but noticed something odd. The envelope was addressed in handwriting, not printed, and something about the careful penmanship made her pass it along. Maxwell opened it at his desk between conference calls, expecting perhaps a handwritten thank you from a charity he'd recently donated to. Instead, he found a single sheet of paper containing just 2 sentences. "You don't deserve a second chance. Some debts can never be repaid." He stared at the words, a chill spreading through his body that had nothing to do with the December weather outside his office window. There was no signature, no explanation, but something about those words struck a chord of recognition deep within him. With hands that suddenly felt unsteady, he tucked the letter into his desk drawer and tried to focus on the quarterly projections waiting on his computer screen. But the words haunted him throughout the day, echoing in his mind during meetings, distracting him as he signed documents. By evening, he found himself pulling the letter out again, examining it under his desk lamp as if it might reveal some hidden message. His phone rang, startling him. It was Emma, calling from the special phone he'd given her for emergencies, which, in Emma's definition, included particularly exciting school achievements or interesting bugs she'd discovered. "Mr. Sterling," her voice chirped through the speaker, "I got the lead in the winter pageant. I'm going to be the North Star." The simple joy in her voice dispelled the dark cloud that had been hanging over him. "That's wonderful news, Emma. The brightest star for the brightest girl. Perfect casting." They chatted for a few minutes about her costume needs and rehearsal schedule, with Emma extracting a promise that he would attend the performance in 2 weeks' time. By the time they hung up, Maxwell had almost forgotten the unsettling letter. Almost. The second letter arrived exactly 1 week later. This time the message was longer, the tone more pointed. "She reminds you of him, doesn't she? The child you abandoned for Sterling Innovations. How convenient to find redemption with someone else's daughter, while your own blood suffered your absence." Maxwell's blood ran cold. This was no random threat or scam. This was someone who knew his past, the past he'd spent decades burying, the secret shame he carried beneath his public success. With trembling fingers, he reached for the bottom drawer of his desk, unlocking it with a key he kept on his person at all times. Inside was a small wooden box containing the few personal items he permitted himself to keep. He removed an aged photograph, a dark-haired woman holding a toddler with familiar blue eyes, the same photograph Emma had spotted in his office, though she'd only seen it partially obscured. Rebecca and Nathan, his ex-wife and son. The painful memories he'd suppressed for over 20 years came flooding back. His early marriage to his college sweetheart Rebecca, the birth of their son Nathan, the struggling years as Maxwell tried to build his company from nothing, the countless missed dinners, forgotten birthdays, and broken promises as Sterling Innovations began to take off. And finally, the ultimatum Rebecca had delivered: choose your family or your company. In what he now recognized as the greatest moral failure of his life, he had chosen wrong. Rebecca had taken Nathan, then just 5 years old, and disappeared from Chicago. Maxwell's pride had prevented him from searching for them until it was too late. By the time he'd realized his mistake, they had established a new life without. Him and Rebecca had made it clear that his presence would only disrupt the stability she'd created for their son. Maxwell had honored her wishes, telling himself it was for Nathan's best interest. He had arranged anonymous trust funds and educational accounts, channeling his guilt into financial provision while remaining absent in every way that truly mattered. Now, someone was forcing him to confront that abandoned responsibility. But who? Nathan would be 27 now. Could he have found his father? Or was it Rebecca, still bitter after all these years? The third letter arrived just 2 days later, slid under his office door sometime during the night. This one contained only a newspaper clipping, an article about Sterling Innovations' upcoming children's technology initiative, with a photo of Maxwell at a press conference. Across the image, written in the same careful handwriting, what would Emma think if she knew the truth? The threat was unmistakable. Whoever was sending these messages was not only aware of his past, but also of his relationship with Emma. The thought of Emma learning about his abandonment of Nathan, of seeing disappointment replace the admiration in her eyes, was unbearable. Maxwell increased security at both his home and office, instructing his team to be vigilant for any suspicious individuals. He considered canceling Saturday's visit with the Hayes family, but couldn't bring himself to disappoint Emma. When they arrived, Emma was bubbling with excitement about her upcoming performance, twirling in the foyer to demonstrate how she would shine as the North Star. Maxwell tried to match her enthusiasm, but Michael immediately sensed something was wrong. "You look like hell," Michael observed bluntly when Emma had gone to the kitchen to help Mrs. Winters with the hot chocolate. "Everything okay?" Maxwell hesitated. He and Michael had developed an unexpected rapport over the past months, but they weren't exactly friends. There remained a careful distance between them, the unbridgeable gap of different life experiences and financial realities. "Just business." "Concerns," Maxwell replied, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. Michael studied him for a moment, clearly unconvinced, but nodded. "If you say so." Their afternoon proceeded as usual, board games in the library, Emma's dramatic readings from her latest favorite book, dinner in the informal dining room that had become their regular spot. But Maxwell found himself watching Emma with a new awareness, seeing echoes of Nathan in her mannerisms, hearing his son's long-ago laughter in her giggles. As Michael and Emma prepared to leave, bundling up against the December cold, Maxwell was struck by a sudden impulse. "Michael, may I speak with you for a moment?" Emma was sent to wait in the car with the heater running while the two men stood in the doorway. "I've been meaning to ask," Maxwell began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "How are things financially? With Emma's pageant coming up, holiday, expenses?" Michael's expression immediately closed off. "We're fine." Of course, Maxwell backpedaled. "I didn't mean to imply. We don't need your charity," Michael said, his voice level but firm. "Emma loves spending time here, and I appreciate what you've done for her emotionally since the accident. But we take care of our own needs." Maxwell nodded, accepting the rebuff. But as he watched their car pull away, he couldn't shake the image of Emma in her too small winter coat, or forget Michael's exhausted expression when he thought no one was looking. That night, Maxwell made a series of discreet phone calls. By morning, he had learned that the construction company Michael worked for was struggling, having lost several major contracts to competitors. Layoffs were expected after the new year. Michael's position as foreman was relatively secure, but his hours and income would almost certainly be reduced. More concerning was the discovery that their landlord had filed for an eviction notice, citing 3 months of partial rent payments. They were facing possible eviction in January, right after the holidays. Maxwell sat in his study, turning these facts over in his mind. He could easily solve the Hayes' financial problems with what amounted to pocket change for him. But Michael's pride stood in the way, the same stubborn pride Maxwell recognized in himself. As he contemplated this dilemma, his private line rang. Few people had this number, and he answered cautiously. "Mr. Sterling," a female voice said. "My name is Jennifer Watts. I'm a reporter with the Chicago Tribune." Maxwell's grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number, Ms. Watts?" "I have my sources," she replied smoothly. "I'm working on a feature about Chicago's business, the elite and their personal interests. Your sudden involvement with the Hayes family has caught my attention. Care to comment on why a childless billionaire is spending so much time with a 7-year-old girl?" The insinuation in her tone made Maxwell's blood boil. "You're treading on dangerous ground, Ms. Watts." "Am I? Or are you?" Her voice hardened. "I know about Nathan, Mr. Sterling. About how you abandoned your own son to build your empire. It makes your current interest in Emma Hayes particularly interesting, don't you think?" The pieces clicked into place. The letters, the threats, the specific knowledge of his past. It hadn't been Nathan or Rebecca. It had been a reporter, digging for a sensational story. "Whatever you're implying," Maxwell said, his voice deadly quiet, "I suggest you reconsider. My attorneys—" "Save the threats," Jennifer interrupted. "I'm offering you a chance to tell your side. An exclusive interview about your relationship with the Hayes family, your past with your son, and your redemption arc, shall we call it. Otherwise, I run with what I have." "Which is nothing but speculation and old gossip," Maxwell countered, even as his mind raced through the potential fallout. It wasn't himself he was worried about. His reputation could weather the storm, but Emma and Michael would be dragged into a media circus they never asked for. "We both know there's more to it than that," Jennifer replied. "I've done my homework, Mr. Sterling. Have you done yours on Michael Hayes? Did you know he's behind on rent? That Emma's school has been providing her with free lunches? That they can't afford the medication for Michael's chronic back pain from a construction injury last year?" Each revelation hit Maxwell like a physical blow. Michael had hidden the depths of their financial troubles, too proud to admit how much they were struggling. "My deadline is tomorrow at noon," Jennifer continued. "Interview or article, your choice." After she hung up, Maxwell sat motionless, in his darkened study. The threats in the letters now made terrible sense. A reporter's attempt to pressure him to create a story where there might be none. But in the process, she had inadvertently given him crucial information about the Hayes family's situation. He had less than 24 hours to make a decision: fight the story and risk exposing Emma to unwanted publicity and Michael to humiliation. Give the interview and control the narrative, but expose his painful past, or find another solution entirely. As the grandfather clock in his hallway chimed midnight, Maxwell reached for his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Archer," he said when the call connected. "I need another favor. A big one." "Big key." Dawn, Maxwell had set his plan in motion. If Michael wouldn't accept his help directly, he would find another way, a way that would protect Emma, honor Michael's pride, and perhaps begin to address the debt he could never truly repay. Not to Nathan, whom he had failed, but to himself, and to the man he still hoped to become. 2 days before Christmas, Michael Hayes received an unexpected letter. It came on official-looking letterhead from the Chicago Community Assistance Foundation, an organization he'd never heard of. The letter explained that his family had been selected as recipients of the foundation's annual housing assistance program based on a nomination from Emma's school. Michael read the letter 3 times, suspicion warring with desperate relief. The foundation was offering to cover their back rent and the next 6 months of payments, citing the special circumstances of a single father raising an exceptional child who has demonstrated remarkable courage and compassion. "This has Sterling written all over it," Michael muttered, crumpling the letter in his fist. Pride and anger flared within him, but beneath those emotions lay exhaustion and fear. The eviction notice on his kitchen counter gave him just 2 weeks to find a new place after the holidays. His savings were depleted from Catherine's medical bills, and no landlord would accept a tenant with a recent eviction on his record. For Emma's sake, he swallowed his pride and called the number on the letterhead. A professional-sounding woman confirmed the legitimacy of the offer, explaining that the foundation helped dozens of families each year. When Michael asked who had nominated them, she mentioned only a staff member at Emma's school, and assured him that accepting assistance was not charity, but community support for a hard-working parent. Michael hung up, still suspicious, but with few options. That evening, when Emma was asleep, he researched the foundation online. It appeared legitimate, with a well-designed website describing various community assistance programs throughout Chicago. The organization had existed for at least 3 years, with news articles mentioning its work in different neighborhoods. What Michael couldn't know was that the foundation had been created overnight by Maxwell's team, complete with backdated web presence and fabricated press coverage. Maxwell had spared no expense to ensure the deception would hold up to scrutiny. The foundation would indeed pay Michael's rent and help other families in similar situations. Maxwell had funded it generously, but its creation had been specifically for this purpose. The next day was Emma's winter pageant. Michael sat in the school auditorium, scanning the crowd until he spotted Maxwell slipping in just as the lights dimmed. The billionaire had traded his usual bespoke suit for more casual attire in an attempt to blend in with the other parents, though his designer coat and the luxury watch glinting at his wrist still marked him as different. On stage, Emma shone, literally, in a costume covered with silver stars, delivering her lines with the clear, confident voice that made Michael's heart swell with pride. When she took her bow, Maxwell applauded as enthusiastically as any proud parent, his face alight with genuine joy. After the performance, as families mingled in the school gymnasium over punch and cookies, Maxwell approached cautiously, bearing a small gift bag. "She was magnificent," he said simply. Michael nodded, the anger he'd been nursing tempered by the knowledge that this man truly cared for Emma. "She practiced those lines for weeks. I got her a small congratulatory gift," Maxwell said, holding out the bag. "Nothing extravagant, I promise." Michael hesitated only briefly before accepting it. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to her." A moment of awkward silence stretched between them until Emma bounded over, still in her star costume, and threw her arms around Maxwell's waist. "You came. Did you like it? Was I too quiet on the second verse? Mrs. Peterson said I needed to project more." Maxwell knelt to her level, his face serious. "You were perfect, the brightest star in the sky." Emma beamed, then noticed the gift bag in her father's hands. "Is that for me?" Inside was a simple star-shaped pendant on a silver chain, nice but not ostentatiously expensive, and a card congratulating her on her performance. Emma immediately asked her father to help her put it on, proudly showing it off to her friends. As Michael fastened the clasp around his daughter's neck, he made a decision. "Mr. Sterling, could we speak privately for a moment?" They stepped into a quiet corner of the gymnasium. Michael took a deep breath. "I received a letter from the Chicago Community Assistance Foundation yesterday." Maxwell's expression remained neutral. "Oh?" "Cut the act," Michael said, but without heat. "I know it was you. The foundation that magically appeared right when we needed it. The rent assistance that's exactly what we need." For a moment, Maxwell considered maintaining the pretense, but something in Michael's steady gaze made him reconsider. "How did you figure it out?" "I'm not an idiot," Michael replied, "and you're not as subtle as you think." Maxwell sighed. "Are you going to refuse the help?" Michael looked across the room at Emma, happily showing her new necklace to her teacher. "No," he said finally, "I can't, not with her future at stake." He turned back to Maxwell, his expression a complex mixture of gratitude and resentment. "But I need to know why, the truth this time." Maxwell was saved from responding by a commotion near the gymnasium entrance. A woman with a professional camera was attempting to enter, only to be blocked by a school administrator, citing privacy policies for the children's event. "Jennifer Watts," Maxwell muttered, recognizing the reporter who had threatened him. Who? Michael asked. A reporter. She's been investigating me, us, the time I spend with Emma. Michael's face darkened. What are you talking about? Not here, Maxwell said, eyeing the ongoing confrontation. We need to leave. Now. They collected Emma quickly, Maxwell leading them through a side exit to where his driver waited. As they pulled away from the school, Maxwell explained about the threatening letters, the reporter's call, and her insinuations about his relationship with Emma. She's planning to run a story suggesting improper motives, Maxwell concluded grimly. I refused her interview, so she's gathering material her own way. Michael's face had grown progressively paler during Maxwell's explanation. Are you saying my daughter is going to be splashed across the newspapers because of her connection to you? I'm doing everything I can to prevent that, Maxwell assured him. My legal team is prepared to file an immediate injunction if the Tribune runs anything involving Emma. Michael ran a hand through his hair, his voice tight with controlled anger. This is exactly what I was afraid of when you first came into our lives. Emma's been through enough without becoming tabloid fodder. I know, Maxwell said quietly, and I'm sorry. But there's something else you should know. The real reason Jennifer Watts is so interested in me, in us. As the car glided through Chicago's snowy streets, Maxwell finally revealed the truth he'd been concealing. About Rebecca, about Nathan, about his greatest failure as a husband and father. I had a son, he said, staring out at the sea, passing cityscape rather than meeting Michael's eyes. I chose my company over him when he was just a child. His mother gave me an ultimatum, and I made the wrong choice. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. They had built a new life without me. Michael listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When Emma saved me, Maxwell continued, when I saw her courage and her heart, it awakened something I thought was dead. A chance to do better, to be better. Not to replace Nathan. Nothing could ever do that, but to honor the second chance I was given. He finally turned to face Michael. The financial help, the foundation, it wasn't charity, it was selfishness in a way. I needed to know she was safe, that she had what she needed, that I wasn't failing another child. The car pulled up to Michael's apartment building. Emma had fallen asleep during the drive, her star costume twinkling softly in the dimness of the car's interior. I need time to process this, Michael said finally, gathering his sleeping daughter. But thank you for being honest. Finally. Maxwell watched them enter their building, a heavy weight in his chest. He had revealed his deepest shame, laid bare the guilt he carried. Now all he could do was wait to see if Michael would allow him to remain in Emma's life. He didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Jennifer Watts's article appeared in the Tribune and online, a sensationalized expose titled Sterling's Secret, Billionaire's Mysterious Relationship with Child Hero Raises Questions. The piece stopped short of making direct accusations but was filled with innuendo and sources close to the situation, questioning Maxwell's interest in Emma. It referenced his abandoned son, though not by name, and suggested Maxwell was attempting to buy affection from Emma and her father through lavish gifts and financial assistance. Worst of all, it included a grainy photo of Emma entering Maxwell's car after the pageant, her face partially visible despite the newspaper's token effort to obscure it. Maxwell's phone rang moments after he finished reading the digital version. It was Michael, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Have you seen it? Yes, Maxwell replied, his own anger cold and precise. My attorneys are all ready. I don't care about your attorneys, Michael cut in. Emma's teacher just called. Reporters are outside her school. They're asking other children about her, about us. Maxwell closed his eyes, a wave of nausea washing over him. I'll fix this, Michael, I promise. You've done enough, Michael responded, his voice breaking. Just stay away from us for now, please. The line went dead before Maxwell could respond. For 3 days, Maxwell respected Michael's request, though it felt like physical pain to be cut off from Emma. His legal team secured a temporary restraining order against further publication of photos or information about Emma, citing child privacy laws. They also filed a defamation suit against Jennifer Watts and the Tribune, not for the insinuations about Maxwell himself, but for the harm done to Emma and Michael. On Christmas Eve, unable to bear the separation any longer, Maxwell drove himself to the Hayes' apartment building. He sat in his car for nearly an hour, a carefully wrapped gift for Emma on the passenger seat, debating whether to approach their door. His decision was made for him when Michael emerged from the building, headed toward his car. He spotted Maxwell immediately and froze, then slowly approached the billionaire's vehicle. Maxwell lowered his window. "I know you asked for space. I needed to bring her Christmas gift." He gestured to the package beside him. Michael studied him for a long moment. "Come upstairs," he said finally. "She's been asking about you." The apartment was small but warm, decorated with homemade paper chains and a modest tree, adorned with what looked like years of accumulated ornaments, many clearly crafted by Emma in various stages of childhood. Emma was curled up on the couch watching a Christmas movie, but sprang to her feet when she saw Maxwell. "Mr. Sterling, Dad said you were busy with work stuff." She threw her arms around him, and Maxwell felt tears threaten. Over her head, he met Michael's gaze and saw something had shifted, a new understanding between them, forged in the crucible of the past difficult days. "I brought you something," Maxwell said, composing himself as he handed Emma the gift. She tore into the wrapping paper with childish enthusiasm, revealing a telescope, not an expensive professional model, but a good quality starter scope for a curious child. "So you can study all the stars, not just be one," Maxwell explained as Emma examined it with wonder. While Emma immediately began reading the instruction manual, Michael gestured for Maxwell to join him in the small kitchen. "The reporters are gone," Michael said, keeping his voice low. "Your lawyers were effective." "I'm sorry they were necessary at all," Maxwell replied. Michael nodded, then surprised Maxwell by offering him a cup of coffee from a battered pot on the counter. "I've been thinking about what you told me, about your son." Maxwell accepted the cup, cradling it between his hands. "Nathan, have you tried to find him? As an adult?" "I hired investigators years ago," Maxwell admitted. "They located him in Seattle. He's a teacher now, married with a child of his own. A grandchild he had never met, another painful reality he had learned to live with. I reached out once, through an intermediary. He wasn't interested in reconnecting." Michael considered this. "And you respected that?" "It was the least I could do after everything." They stood in silence, the apartment filled with the sounds of Emma's excited commentary about constellations she wanted to observe. "The foundation," Michael said finally. "Is it real? I mean, beyond us?" "It is now," Maxwell assured him. "Fully. Funded, helping families across Chicago." A hint of a smile touched Michael's lips. "Created overnight by the great Maxwell Sterling." "Something like that," Maxwell acknowledged. "I may have pulled some strings." Michael's expression grew serious again. "I won't let Emma be hurt by your world, the media, the speculation, any of it." "Nor will I," Maxwell promised, "whatever it takes." Our tentative truce established, they rejoined Emma, who was already planning where to set up her telescope on Maxwell's lakefront property. "Because the city lights make it hard to see the really good stars, Dad." As the evening progressed, something subtle but significant shifted in their dynamic. They were no longer just a billionaire and the family of the child who saved him. They were three people connected by circumstance, but choosing to remain connected by something deeper, something that resembled family in all the ways that mattered. None of them could have anticipated how that choice would be tested in the coming days, or the revelation that would shake the foundation of everything they thought they knew about each other. New Year's Day dawned bright and cold in Chicago, the city blanketed in fresh snow that temporarily transformed even the grittiest neighborhoods into scenes of pristine beauty. In Maxwell Sterling's lakefront mansion, preparations were underway for what had become an unexpected tradition, the Hayes family's visit to celebrate the new year. Mrs. Winters moved efficiently through the house, overseeing last-minute details, while trying to conceal her surprise at the transformation her employer had undergone in recent months. The solitary, driven businessman she had served for 15 years had become someone different, someone who requested child-friendly meals, who cleared his calendar for a second-grade winter pageant, who now hummed absently as he arranged board games in the library. Maxwell checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Michael and Emma weren't due for another hour, but anticipation had him restless. The media storm had largely subsided over the holiday week, partly due to his legal team's aggressive response, partly because a celebrity scandal had diverted public attention. He had used the reprieve to develop a more permanent solution. His phone rang. Archer, his most trusted security consultant. "It's all set," Archer reported without preamble. "The application was processed as requested. All records are secure." "And the other matter?" Maxwell asked. "Confirmed. The Tribune is retracting the story tomorrow. Ms. Watts has been reassigned to the weather desk in their Milwaukee affiliate." Maxwell allowed himself a grim smile. "Thank you." He ended the call and moved to his study, where a legal document awaited his signature. He read through it one final time, though he knew its contents by heart. Not adoption. He would never presume that far, but a legal scholarship and trust fund for Emma, structured to provide for her education and future needs without infringing on Michael's parental authority. It would be presented as an initiative of his newly established foundation, with Emma as its first beneficiary. The doorbell rang precisely at noon. Maxwell smoothed his sweater and went to answer it himself, finding Emma bouncing excitedly on the doorstep while Michael struggled with what appeared to be a homemade dish covered in foil. "Happy New Year," Emma exclaimed, launching herself at Maxwell with her customary enthusiasm. "Sarah from work insisted we bring something," Michael explained, looking slightly embarrassed as he held out the dish. "It's her grandmother's black-eyed peas. Supposedly, brings good luck for the new year." Maxwell accepted the offering with genuine appreciation. "Perfect. We'll need all the luck we can get." The day unfolded in comfortable companionship. They played board games in the library, with Emma demonstrating a surprising strategic mind at chess that delighted Maxwell. They ventured into the snow-covered gardens, where an impromptu snowball fight left all three of them breathless with laughter and exertion. They shared a meal that combined Mrs. Winter's gourmet offerings with Sarah's humble but delicious black-eyed peas. As afternoon faded toward evening, Maxwell suggested showing Emma how to use her new telescope, taking advantage of the clear winter sky. While she eagerly set up the instrument on the terrace, Maxwell took the opportunity to speak privately with Michael. "I have something I'd like to discuss with you," he began, leading Michael to his study. "A proposal regarding Emma's future." Michael's expression immediately grew guarded. "What kind of proposal?" Maxwell handed him the document. "A trust fund for her education and future needs, completely in your control as trustee until she turns 18. Michael scanned the paperwork, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. "This is a lot of money, Maxwell." "It's structured through the foundation," Maxwell explained. "She'd be the inaugural recipient of what will become an annual scholarship program for deserving children. There would be no direct connection to me personally, no media attention." Michael set the document down. "Why are you doing this?" "You know why," Maxwell replied quietly. Michael studied him for a long moment. "Because of Nathan. Because you're trying to make amends." "Partly," Maxwell acknowledged, "but also because she deserves every opportunity, because she saved my life, because—" He hesitated, then finished simply, "because she matters to me." Before Michael could respond, a commotion from the foyer interrupted them. Raised voices, including Mrs. Winter's normally composed tones, sounding distinctly alarmed. They hurried from the study to find a tall, dark-haired man in his late 20s standing in the entrance hall. He wore a rumpled coat dusted with snow, and his face, handsome, with piercing blue eyes that matched Maxwell's own, was flushed with emotion. Maxwell froze, his breath catching in his throat. "Nathan?" The young man's gaze locked onto Maxwell, years of pain and anger evident in the tightness of his jaw. "Hello, Father." The word held no warmth, only bitter acknowledgement. "How?" Maxwell began, then stopped, unable to formulate a coherent question through his shock. "How did I find you?" Nathan supplied. "You're not exactly hiding. Your face. Hairs all over the business news." His eyes flicked to Michael, then back to Maxwell. "Though I admit the recent coverage was unexpected. That's what finally brought me here." Michael glanced between them, recognition dawning. "I'll check on Emma," he said tactfully, retreating to the terrace where she remained absorbed with her telescope. Left alone with his son, Maxwell struggled to find words. 22 years of separation stretched between them like an unbridgeable chasm. "Would you like to sit down?" he finally managed. Nathan shook his head. "I'm not staying long. I just needed to see for myself." "See what?" "If it was true. If you'd really found yourself a replacement family." The accusation was razor sharp, cutting Maxwell to the quick. "It's not like that," he said quietly. "No," Nathan challenged. "The great Maxwell Sterling, suddenly playing weekend father to some random kid? What else would you call it?" "Redemption," Maxwell answered honestly. "A second chance I don't deserve." Something in his tone gave Nathan pause. For the first time, he really looked at his father, not the media image or the corporate titan, but the man standing before him, vulnerability evident in his stance. "I read about what happened," Nathan said, his voice marginally less hostile. "How she drove you to the hospital." Maxwell nodded. "She saved my life." "That's quite a debt. One I can never repay. But it's not about debt, not anymore." Maxwell hesitated, then asked the question that had haunted him for years. "Why are you here, Nathan? After all this time?" Nathan's expression flickered with uncertainty. "I don't know. When I saw those articles, something just snapped. I kept thinking about how you were never there for my school events, my birthdays, how you missed everything that mattered. And now suddenly, you're playing doting grandfather to some strangers." "Kid?" "Not grandfather," Maxwell corrected gently. "Just friend." Nathan gave a disbelieving laugh. "Since when does Maxwell Sterling have friends?" The question hit with surprising force because it contained a fundamental truth. Before Emma and Michael, Maxwell's life had been devoid of genuine connections, filled with business associates, employees, and acquaintances, but no one who truly knew him. "Things change," Maxwell said simply. "People change, at least they can try to." A tense silence stretched between them, until Nathan broke it with an unexpected question. "How's Mom?" Maxwell blinked in confusion. "I wouldn't know. We haven't spoken in over 20 years. Now it was Nathan's turn to look confused. "But the support payments, they've been coming from you all this time." "I set up a trust," Maxwell explained. "It's administered independently. I receive no information about you or your mother. That was part of our agreement." Nathan's brow furrowed. "She always said you were watching from afar, that you had people reporting back to you about me." "No," Maxwell said firmly. "Never. I respected her wishes completely. The only thing I knew about you until today was what my investigator told me 5 years ago, that you had become a teacher and started a family of your own." He paused, then added softly, "I have a grandchild I've never met." Nathan's certainty seemed to waver. "She said you didn't want us, that we were holding you back." "She wasn't entirely wrong," Maxwell admitted painfully. "I made choices, terrible, unforgivable choices. I put Sterling Innovations above everything, including my family. By the time I realized what I'd lost, Rebecca had made it clear that coming back into your life would only disrupt the stability she'd created for you." He met Nathan's gaze directly. "I told myself I was respecting her wishes by staying away, that it was best for you. But the truth is I was a coward. I was afraid to face what I'd done, afraid you would reject me. So I threw myself into building the company, told myself that financial support was enough." His voice roughened with emotion. "It wasn't, it never could be. And I've lived with that knowledge every day since." Before Nathan could respond, the terrace door opened and Emma bounded in, cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. "Mr. Sterling, I can see Jupiter and 3 of its moons." She skidded to a stop when she noticed Nathan suddenly shy in the presence of a stranger. Michael followed close behind, his expression apologetic. "Sorry, she couldn't wait to tell you." Maxwell managed a smile despite the emotional turmoil roiling within him. "Emma, this is Nathan, an old friend." Emma studied the newcomer with frank curiosity. "You have the same eyes as Mr. Sterling," she observed. Nathan blinked, clearly taken aback by the child's perceptiveness. Yes, I suppose I do." "Are you staying for dinner?" Emma asked. "Mrs. Winters made chocolate mousse for dessert. It's really good." The simple, innocent question hung in the air, laden with implications far beyond Emma's understanding. Nathan looked at Maxwell, conflict evident in his expression. "I should go," he said finally. "Please," Maxwell said, the word emerging more as plea than invitation. "Stay, just for dinner." Nathan hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Fine, just dinner." What followed was perhaps the most surreal meal of Maxwell's life. Emma, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension, chatted happily about her telescope, her school, and her plans to learn piano in the coming year. Michael maintained a calm, steady presence, occasionally steering the conversation when it faltered. Nathan said little but watched the interactions with growing puzzlement, as if trying to reconcile the warm, attentive man at the table with the absent father of his memories. As Mrs. Winters served the promised chocolate mousse, Emma turned to Nathan with the directness only children can manage. "Why haven't I met you before, if you're Mr. Sterling's friend?" Nathan hesitated, looking to Maxwell for guidance. "Nathan and I lost touch for many years," Maxwell explained carefully. "Sometimes that happens between people, even when they care about each other." Emma considered this. "Like when my friend Zoe moved to Florida. We write letters sometimes, but it's not the same." "Something like that," Maxwell agreed, his throat tight with emotion. "Well, I'm glad you found each other again," Emma declared with 7-year-old certainty. "Everyone needs friends." After dinner, while Emma and Michael explored the music room, Emma eager to show Michael the piano she hoped to learn, Nathan and Maxwell found themselves alone again in the study. "She's quite something," Nathan observed, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "Yes," Maxwell agreed. "Remarkable." "And her father?" "A good man, proud, hard-working. He lost his wife to cancer a few years ago." Nathan nodded, absorbing this. "So the articles got it wrong. You're not trying to, I don't know, buy yourself a replacement family?" Maxwell winced at the bluntness but answered honestly. "No, I'm trying to help them because I can, and because they've helped me in ways they don't even realize." "By reminding you of what you missed with me," Nathan concluded, a hint of the earlier bitterness returning. "By reminding me of what matters," Maxwell corrected. "Family, connection, the things I sacrificed for success, only to discover success is meaningless without them." Nathan studied him for a long moment. "I used to hate you," he said finally. "Mom never said anything explicitly negative, but there was always this narrative that you'd chosen your company over us, that we weren't important enough." "I failed you both terribly," Maxwell acknowledged, "and I can never undo that." "No," Nathan agreed, "you can't." He paused, then added more quietly, "But maybe we could try to move forward. Somehow." The tentative offer hung between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a willingness to consider the possibility of reconnection. For Maxwell, it was more than he had dared to hope for. "I'd like that," he said simply, "very much." From the music room came the sound of Emma picking out a simple melody on the piano, punctuated by her delighted laughter when she got it right. The sound seemed to underscore the moment, a new beginning, fragile but real. As they rejoined the others, Maxwell felt something shift within him, as if pieces of his fractured life were, slowly, tentatively beginning to align in a new configuration. One that might, with time and care, become whole. What none of them realized was that the night's revelations were not yet complete. The most significant discovery, one that would forever alter the bonds forming between them, still awaited. Spring. came early to Chicago that year, bringing with it warm breezes that seemed to mirror the thawing of long-frozen relationships. In the 4 months since Nathan's unexpected appearance on New Year's Day, a cautious rebuilding had begun, not just between father and son, but among all of them, forming connections that none had anticipated. Nathan had returned to Seattle after that first tense dinner, but he didn't disappear as Maxwell had feared. Instead, weekly video calls became their ritual, awkward at first, but gradually easing into something resembling genuine conversation. Nathan shared carefully curated glimpses of his life, his work as a high school science teacher, his wife Eliza's photography business, and occasional fleeting images of 5-year-old Lucas, the grandson Maxwell was slowly being permitted to know. For Emma, the expansion of their unconventional family circle was accepted with the easy adaptability of childhood. She had simply incorporated Nathan into her understanding of Mr. Sterling's world, delighted to discover he shared her interest in astronomy and could explain the constellations even better than her books did. Michael observed these developments with cautious optimism. The trust fund paperwork remained unsigned in his desk drawer, not rejected but not yet accepted either. Something held him back, some instinct that told him to wait, that all the pieces weren't yet in place. On a mild Saturday in April, they gathered at Maxwell's estate for what had become their tradition, though this time with a notable addition. Nathan had flown in from Seattle, his first visit since January, bringing Eliza and Lucas to meet the extended circle that had formed around his estranged father. The elegant garden, now blooming with spring flowers, echoed with the sound of children's laughter as Emma appointed herself tour guide and protector to the younger Lucas, solemnly showing him the koi pond and the best climbing trees. "They seem to be getting along well," Eliza observed, watching the children from the terrace. Petite and artistic, with warm brown eyes and an innate gentleness, she had approached the situation with remarkable openness, free from the history that complicated things for the others. "Emma's always wanted a little brother or sister," Michael said, a fleeting sadness crossing his features as he thought of Catherine and the future they'd planned together. Maxwell, standing slightly apart, caught the expression and felt a familiar pang of empathy. He had come to recognize the signs when Michael was remembering his late wife, a certain distance in his eyes, a softening around his mouth. It mirrored what Maxwell saw in his own reflection when memories of his failures with Nathan surfaced. Nathan approached, carrying a tray of lemonade that Mrs. Winters had prepared. The resemblance between father and son was striking now that they stood together. The same tall build, the same penetrating blue eyes, though Nathan's face lacked the hard edges that years of corporate battles had carved into Maxwell's features. "I've been meaning to ask," Nathan said, setting down the tray. "How did you two meet?" The articles weren't very clear, and Emma's explanation involved a lot of superhero references. Michael and Maxwell exchanged glances, realizing they had never fully shared the story with Nathan. "Emma saved my life," Maxwell said simply, quite literally. As they settled into comfortable chairs, Maxwell recounted that fateful December night, his cardiac episode while driving, Emma finding him unconscious, her incredible journey behind the wheel of his Bentley to get him to the hospital. Nathan listened with growing astonishment. "She drove your car at 7 years old?" He looked toward the garden where Emma was now teaching Lucas how to feed the koi without falling in. "That's remarkable," Maxwell finished. "Yes. The doctors said I wouldn't have survived if she hadn't gotten me to the hospital when she did." "It explains a lot," Nathan said thoughtfully, "about why you've become so involved with them." "It was the beginning," Maxwell acknowledged, "but it's become much more than gratitude." Michael nodded agreement. Emma needed something too after losing her mother. Maxwell gave her a connection she was missing. He hesitated, then added with quiet honesty, "And maybe I needed that too." A comfortable silence settled over them, broken when Mrs. Winters appeared to announce that lunch was ready. Michael rose to call the children, leaving Maxwell, Nathan, and Eliza on the terrace. "Dad," Nathan said, using the term for the first time since his return, "there's something I need to tell you." Maxwell's heart contracted at the word dad, so casually spoken, yet so momentous. "What is it?" Nathan glanced at Eliza, who gave him an encouraging nod. "We're moving back to Chicago. I've accepted a position at the Adler Planetarium, heading their education department." Maxwell struggled to keep his expression calm, though joy surged through him. "That's wonderful news. When?" "This summer. We've already started looking. Dad, houses." Nathan hesitated, then added, "I thought maybe you could help with that. You know the city better than we do." The simple request to be included in this significant life decision meant more to Maxwell than Nathan could possibly know. "I'd be honored," he managed. From the garden came the sound of Emma's voice, calling excitedly for them to come. Quickly, they hurried down the stone steps to find her crouched by a flowering bush, Lucas beside her, both children staring intently at something on the ground. "Look," Emma whispered as they approached. "A baby bird fell from its nest." Sure enough, a tiny sparrow fledgling sat trembling in the grass, its downy feathers ruffled by the gentle breeze. "We have to help it," Emma declared, with absolute conviction. "It's too little to be alone." Michael knelt beside her. "Sometimes baby birds leave the nest on purpose, Emma Bear. It's called fledging. The parents are probably watching from nearby." Emma looked skeptical. "But it's scared, and it might get eaten by a cat." Before Michael could respond, Nathan joined them, carefully examining the bird without touching it. "Your dad's right, Emma. See its feathers? It's old enough to be out of the nest, but it's still learning to fly. The best thing we can do is give it space and let its parents continue to care for it." Emma considered this expert assessment. "But what if the parents don't come back?" "They will," Nathan assured her. "That's what parents do." His eyes flickered briefly to Maxwell, a world of meaning in the glance. As if to confirm his words, an adult sparrow landed on a nearby branch, a small insect in its beak watching them warily. "See?" Nathan pointed. "That's probably its mother or father, waiting for us to move away so it can feed the baby." Emma's face lit up. "So it's not alone after all." "No," Maxwell said softly, watching the parent bird's protective vigilance. "Not alone. At all." They retreated to the terrace to give the birds space, but Emma insisted on setting up a viewing station with her binoculars to monitor the fledgling's progress. Lucas joined her, equally fascinated by the small drama unfolding in the garden. As the adults settled around the lunch table, the conversation flowed with an ease that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Nathan shared details about his new position, while Eliza described the photography studio she hoped to establish in Chicago. Michael talked about a promotion at the construction company, made possible partly by additional training he'd been able to pursue with the flexible schedule the trust fund had provided for Emma's care. Maxwell mostly listened, savoring the simple joy of having his family, both old and new, gathered around him. The legal adoption of Emma that Jennifer Watts had maliciously insinuated had never been his intention. Instead, something more organic and perhaps more meaningful had developed, a blended family circle formed not by documents but by choice and growing affection. After lunch, as Eliza helped Mrs. Winters clear the table and the children returned to their birdwatching, Maxwell found himself alone with Michael and Nathan. There was a moment of contemplative silence before Nathan spoke. "I've been wondering something," he said, looking between Maxwell and Michael. "Have either of you ever looked into Emma's maternal family history?" Michael shook his head. "Catherine was raised in the foster system. She never knew her biological parents." "What about DNA testing?" Nathan pressed. "Those ancestry services are quite detailed now." Michael's brow furrowed. "No, we never did that. Why?" Nathan hesitated, glancing at Maxwell. "It's probably nothing, just there's something familiar about Emma. I noticed it the first time we met, but I couldn't place it." Maxwell studied his son. "What are you suggesting, Nathan?" "I'm not." "Sure," Nathan admitted. "But looking at her with Lucas today, I was struck by certain similarities, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking hard, the shape of her eyes." Michael stared at him, then at Maxwell, dawning comprehension in his expression. "You think It's probably just my imagination, Nathan backpedaled, seeming to regret bringing it up. Forget I mentioned it. But the possibility, once raised, could not be dismissed so easily. Maxwell found himself studying Emma with new eyes as she demonstrated to Lucas how to use the binoculars, noting features he had previously attributed to coincidence. The determined set of her jaw so like Nathan's, the intuitive problem-solving ability that mirrored his own. Later that evening, after Nathan's family had returned to their hotel and Emma had fallen asleep on the sofa watching a movie, Maxwell and Michael sat in the study, the unspoken question hanging between them. "Is it possible?" Michael finally asked. "Could Emma somehow be related to your family?" Maxwell turned his crystal tumbler in his hands, watching the amber liquid catch the light. "Rebecca left Chicago when Nathan was 5. I lost track of them for years. She could have had another child, given it up for adoption. Catherine was adopted from the foster system here in Chicago," Michael said slowly. "The timing would be right. She would have been born around the time Rebecca left with Nathan." Maxwell met his gaze. "We shouldn't speculate without facts. It would be unfair to Emma, to all of us." Michael nodded agreement. "A DNA test would settle it. But I'm not sure if we should pursue this. What would it mean for Emma if it turned out to be true?" "That depends," Maxwell said carefully, "on how we handle it, on the story we choose to tell." The question remained unresolved as April turned to May, though it hovered at the edges of their awareness during each visit, each shared meal. Nathan and his family returned to Seattle to prepare for their summer move, but the seed of possibility he had planted continued to grow. It was Emma herself who ultimately forced the issue. During one of their regular Saturday visits, she found an old photograph album in Maxwell's library and began paging through it, fascinated by glimpses of a younger Maxwell in various global locations. "Who's this?" she asked suddenly, pointing to a faded photograph of Rebecca holding infant Nathan. Maxwell froze, then carefully sat beside her on the sofa. "That's Nathan when he was a baby, and his mother, Rebecca." Emma studied the image intently. "She looks like the lady in my mom's special box." Michael, who had been reading nearby, looked up sharply. "What special box, Emma Bear?" "The one in your closet, with Mum's important papers. There's a picture of a lady who looks like her." Emma pointed at Rebecca's image. "Mum said it was her birth mother, but she didn't know her name." The adults exchanged stunned glances. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, Michael retrieved a small wooden box from his apartment, Catherine's special box that he had preserved for Emma but never fully examined himself. Inside, among birth certificates and adoption papers, they found a faded photograph of a younger Rebecca, unmistakable despite the years. A DNA test confirmed what they had begun to suspect. Catherine Hayes, Emma's mother, had been Rebecca Sterling's biological daughter, given up for adoption shortly after Rebecca left Chicago with Nathan. Emma was Maxwell's granddaughter by blood, as well as by the bonds they had formed. The revelation could have fractured their carefully constructed family circle. Instead, it somehow completed it, explaining the connection they had all felt from the beginning, a connection that transcended the circumstances of their meeting. On a warm evening in June, they gathered on Maxwell's terrace overlooking Lake Michigan, Michael and Emma, Nathan, Eliza and Lucas, and Maxwell himself. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, reflecting off the water in a dazzling display. Emma, now fully aware of the family connections that linked them all, had accepted the revelation with the resilience of childhood, simply adding it to her understanding of her expanding world. "So you're really my grandfather," she had said to Maxwell when they explained it to her, "and Nathan is my uncle and Lucas is my cousin." "Yes," Maxwell had answered, carefully watching for signs of distress. "Is that okay with you?" Emma had considered this seriously, then nodded. "It means we're a real family now." A real family. The words had brought unexpected tears to Maxwell's eyes. Now, as they sat together watching the sunset, Emma perched on the terrace wall between her father and grandfather, Maxwell felt a sense of completion he had never thought possible. The Broken pieces of his life, his estrangement from Nathan, the daughter he had never known, the grandchild who had saved him in more ways than one, had somehow realigned into something whole and precious. "I've been thinking," Michael said, breaking the companionable silence, "about that trust fund paperwork." Maxwell nodded, careful to keep his expression neutral. "And?" "I think it's time I signed it." Michael glanced at Emma, who was pointing out different cloud formations to Lucas. "Not because we need it, but because it's part of her legacy, from both sides of her family." The simple acceptance meant more than Michael could possibly know, an acknowledgement of their shared responsibility for Emma's future, a final integration of their once separate worlds. Later, as the children played a board game inside and the adults remained on the terrace enjoying the evening air, Nathan approached his father. "You know," he said quietly, "for years I believed you chose your company over family. That success was all that mattered to you." Maxwell didn't deny it. That was true for a long time. "But seeing you with Emma, with all of us," Nathan gestured to their gathered family, "I think maybe you just needed the right reason to choose differently." Maxwell considered this. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I needed to lose everything that mattered before I could understand its value." "Well," Nathan said with the hint of a smile, "it seems you've found it again." As night fell over Lake Michigan, stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky, Maxwell Sterling stood surrounded by the family he had never expected to have. A son rebuilding a relationship once thought irreparably broken. A granddaughter who had saved his life in the most literal sense and then transformed it in ways far more profound, and the expanding circle of connections that had grown from that single act of courage. The journey had begun with a child's decision to help, a stranger in need. It had led them all through pain and revelation to this moment of wholeness. Not perfect, there would always be scars from the past, always new challenges to face, but whole nonetheless. Emma joined him at the railing, her small hand slipping naturally into his. "Grandpa," she said, testing the still new title, "can we use the telescope tonight? The stars are really bright." "Of course," Maxwell replied, his heart full. "We have all the time in the world." Together they turned their gaze